The world in #039's most renowned royal family welcomed Princess Beatrice of York into the world on August 8, 1988. You would be amazed to learn that she had so many troubles for someone born into such extreme privilege. And you and #039'll understand why money can and #039 to solve all your issues by the time this film is over. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, had her as their firstborn daughter, hence, she became the sixth cherished grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. At the time of her birth, everyone assumed that she would have the most silver spoons of any child ever. The events surrounding Princess Beatrice and #039's case were so bizarre that they had to retract their statements. She witnessed at the tender age of 7 that no matter where you were born, life has a way of throwing you a curveball. And so began her colorful existence. After her mother and #039's scandals and incompetence were exposed to the world, Beatrice and #039's parents had a renowned divorce, and her world crumbled. They made an effort to support their family by co-parenting and maintaining a good relationship, but it is not easy to mend a child in #039's shattered heart. Their loving family fostered the development of both her and her younger sister, Princess Eugenie, into lovely, dignified women. However, they felt as though something else was happening on a deeper level. Did these things hinder their lives or were they beneficial? Until the very conclusion of the video, we will reveal the most shocking secrets of the royal family, and you will not believe your eyes. Because Beatrice was unable to lead a regular life following her parents and #039 divorce, we keep referring to her life as difficult. She was never going to fit in with the other kids, no matter how much she tried. The news that their young princess had dyslexia shocked the royal family when she was transported to the hospital. She did her best to hide it for a while, but in 2005, she came forward to openly declare her condition, offering assistance to everyone facing the same difficulty. She struggled to accept the reality before making the announcement. This had a devastating effect on her academic career. Beatrice felt she could better control her dyslexia and perhaps achieve higher grades if she waited a year before taking her GCSE exams. Hey, guess what? Wow, she was really outstanding. She demonstrated her commitment to honoring and completing the duties assigned to her as a member of the royal family by earning an A in drama and BS in history and film studies at the level. In her senior year, she demonstrated excellent leadership qualities by being voted head girl. She had a brilliant education and discovered her talent for singing in the school choir, where she also developed a strong creative interest. Let us tell you, the stigma she had to bear throughout her early life had nothing to do with dyslexia. Wondering what it was, you could ask. We will inform you of that immediately. It all began when she had to deal with the knowledge that she was the daughter of her mother. Sarah Ferguson, her mother, had gone on to do a lot of different things. She had her share of scandals, while being Lady Diana and #039's dearest friend. Everything from her affair that caused a Christmas photo of her aide licking her toes to go viral to her incompetence in handling basic money, which put her house in debt, fell inside her sphere of influence. Her fame spread much before the advent of the internet. Probably the most contentious issue concerned her attempt to use the authority of the British royal family to buy a reporter. Both the public and the media despised her. This led to her being dubbed the Duchess of Pork. Because Princess Beatrice considered herself to be the Duchess of Pork and #039's daughter, this was a devastating term for her. Because of this, she started a stringent diet regimen for herself when she was just 8 years old. As Beatrice matured, her connection with her body image became more complex, exacerbating the problem. The public and #039's interest in her beauty began to grow as she entered adulthood, and the masses criticized her every fashion choice and haircut. This just made things worse. The icing on the cake was the mockery she endured in 2011 when, instead of being complimented for her impeccable taste in fashion, she was dubbed the "pretzel hat" for her daring fascinator at Prince William and #039's wedding. She was someone who was extremely self-conscious about her appearance, so the thought of being the object of public scorn was terrifying. It can be assumed that she became more reserved and gave up. Absolutely not. She ignored everyone and everything and focused on improving herself. Societal beauty standards were not something she gave up to. She decided to be herself instead. Through her fame, she has questioned traditional standards of beauty and urged her audience to do the same. Beatrice triumphed over adversity and ensured that she would remain the most beloved member of the royal family. Her sister, Princess Eugenie, revealed with us a moment when she was overcome with emotion just before a public appearance. Being so loving and caring towards others is why Beatrice is beloved by so many. She was the sole member of her royal family to receive comparisons to Princess Diana, her aunt. This was due to the fact that Beatrice matured into a queen who understood her subjects and accepted her regal duties. Like the other members, she resented being a golden bird trapped in the royal cage. So, a grand masked gala at Windsor Castle marked her 18th birthday, and she raced into maturity. Before entering the workforce, she made sure she would do it properly. It all began when she worked her way up the retail ladder at Selfridges. After that, she participated at the Foreign Office and #039's press office as an unpaid intern. She underwent all of this training so that she may better understand her subjects and carry out her royal duties. When she said she would change the royal family and #039's traditions, she meant it. You may see why, considering that Beatrice broke new ground in 2009 with her minor role in The Young Victoria, becoming the first British royal to star in a feature film, not a documentary. Her ancestor Queen Victoria was the star of a much-loved film. However, due to a hacking scandal that occurred in 2014, she was forced to quit from her internship at Sony Pictures, and her debut picture ended up being her goodbye picture as well. It wasn't in #039, like her life came to a complete standstill when her acting career ended. Keep in mind that she isn't and #039, your average Joe. She embodies the beloved Princess Beatrice. In 2015, she took her profession to the next level by moving to New York City. She eventually had to juggle responsibilities in both London and New York as part of her full-time job. At Affinity, she oversaw partnerships and strategy as VP, and her professional name was Beatrice York. In case you were wondering, Partnership and Strategy is currently the most dominant artificial intelligence corporation in the world. However, you may ask, what exactly did she do to help the individuals she cared about? Rest assured, we will provide you with the details soon away. Are you still thinking about her dyslexia? It was something that ruined her time in school when she was younger. Despite attending a school that excelled at teaching mundane subjects, she was completely isolated and had no one to lean on but herself. Her loved ones were fast to respond when they learnt of her illness, and she soon began to reclaim her life. Because of the unwavering support she received from her instructors and friends, she was able to triumph over her impairment and prove that physical limitations should not hold you back. As a result of all of this, she learned to think outside the box and find novel solutions to old problems. Beatrice and #039's campaign for understanding and education was driven by her personal experience. By speaking up about her struggles with dyslexia in interviews and public speeches, she has helped break down stigmatization of the condition. Her speech made it clear that dyslexia is not a weakness but an opportunity for growth in areas such as imagination, critical thinking, and creative problem solving. Even in her personal life, she has been devoted to helping underprivileged pupils by collaborating with groups like the Helen Arkell Dyslexia Charity. When she and #039's at home with her kids, she does her best to encourage them to embrace who they are and grow into their full potential. Instead of letting them live their lives as confined birds, she is ensuring that they will grow into independent individuals who realize their greatest potential. The multifaceted character of her childhood was another factor that shaped her character. Though it had an unusual effect on her, she found herself entangled in her parents' and #039 high-profile divorce dispute. She was able to hide the internal fissures that had developed thanks to the nurturing influences of two distinct parenting styles. Spending time with her mother allowed her to absorb her easygoing personality, and going to formal events with her father taught her the proper royal protocol. Despite the fact that she was only a child with dyslexia, she managed to succeed in ways that nobody had anticipated, all while juggling the expectations of her parents, who lived in separate worlds. This may appear negative to some. While obliged to maintain the dignity of royalty, Beatrice often yearned for a more ordinary life, as pointed out by royal author Tom Quinn. They had no idea that Beatrice would find strength in her family and #039's paradox as she adjusted to her new life. All that political rhetoric was overwhelming. we should discuss a more captivating topic. You could think that a lady of the princes and hashtag 039 stature would have known what men were best for her, wooed and hashtag 039, to you? This girl and hashtag 039's absolutely mind-blowing decision was the worst decision ever, so hold on to your chairs. At 17, she had her first romantic interest, and it was the worst guy ever. Paolo Liuzzo, who was 24 years old in 2005, was the object of her romantic desires. Because of all the legal issues they had, Paolo was seen as a very infamous figure. When they began to date openly, the public went ballistic. They are willing to sacrifice themselves so that Paolo and Princess Beatrice might be together. How did he come to be so despised by the general population? While he was a student, he was involved in a deadly fight, which led to charges of manslaughter, which were subsequently dropped to those of assault and violence. Remember, he was the worst, and we have summarized everything as much as possible. Even more astonishing is the fact that Beatrice and hashtag 039's family, especially Sarah Ferguson, her mother, approved of the connection despite his scandal. Fortunately, their affair came to a close in 2006 due to the difficulties posed by Liuzzo and hashtag 039's probation and his restriction on his freedom of movement. Beatrice was perceived as devastated and depressed for an extended period, despite their final breakup. Crazy as it seems, her life was irrevocably altered by her decade-long romance with Dave Clark, a businessman employed for Virgin Galactic, and not by this brief affair. Everyone assumed that Clark would be the Prince Charming to cap off her lovely fairy tale romance. Eventually, they came to the conclusion that they had high hopes for an eternal royal marriage, but in 2016, Beatrice suffered another devastating loss when Clark again declined to commit to marriage. One thing, though. Clark had an unwavering ally in this girl, who went so far as to decide to relocate to New York just to be with him. But little by little, their relationship started to show signs of strain, and she was left with a difficult choice. Beatrice felt awful about herself and her inability to be loved after Clark promptly moved on and proposed to someone else, intensifying the sorrow of the split. After that, what transpired? Who else did she meet? Is she better off now? Before the video ends, you and hashtag 039LL have all your questions answered. Following her heartbreak, she made a beeline for her people. She made a conscious decision to transform her suffering into strength, and she performed her royal duties with extraordinary fervor. She began advocating for causes she believed in and doing humanitarian work to help spread awareness about them. As she started to heal from the emotional scars of her past, her spirit was strengthened by her emphasis on helping others, which provided her serenity. The wounds you have within you are what truly make you unique, she proved it once again. They only serve to stoke your fire. Almost miraculous, in fact. Lucky for her, she crossed up with Edoardo Mapelli Mosey at the very moment she was beginning to believe that love might not be her destiny. A real estate tycoon with connections to the Italian aristocracy, he became an integral part of her life and made her regret the lonely nights she cursed love on. Their romance started in 2018 and went viral shortly after. Attending a public event with Edoardo in March 2019 made Beatrice a media darling, as it sent a message to the world that their relationship was serious. They appeared to be very much in love with each other when they became engaged later that year on a romantic vacation to Italy. Someone who treated her with dignity and respect and valued her for who she was all she had ever needed. All of these traits were exhibited by Edoardo. A little setback occurred when the COVID-19 epidemic showed up unannounced in May 2020, the month their wedding was scheduled to take place. Despite this setback, Beatrice showed courage by choosing a private wedding at Windsor and hashtag 039's Royal Chapel of All Saints in July 2020. Even more so than Lady Sarah and hashtag 039's wedding, this one was little impersonal. They had a tiny wedding since, unfortunately, something else was happening in her life at the time. Her father, Prince Andrew, was a controversial figure during that time. It was nonetheless unbecoming of a member of the royal family. Her wedding dress, a remodeled gown that the Queen had loaned her, was one of many personal touches that helped to make the ceremony seem like any other family gathering. In addition, she adorned herself with the emblem of continuity, the Queen Mary fringe tiara. Historical practice. Princess Beatrice finally gave birth to a girl on September 18, 2021, to a name they chose, Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli Mosey. Christopher Wolfe, whom she and her stepfather Eduardo Mapelli affectionately call Wolfie, was born in April 2016 to her husband in #039's prior relationship. Most of Princess and #039's public life has been molded by her love for helping others, as we have previously mentioned above. Among her many public service accomplishments are her roles as the inaugural Junior Ambassador for Children in Crisis, a Children and #039's Foundation, and the World Dyslexia Assembly. However, Grace in #039's Place Project was the most notable of her several humanitarian endeavors. Those children who are nearing the end of their lives can find comfort in our hospice. Beyond her responsibilities as a royal patron, Beatrice and the community worked ceaselessly to ensure that these youngsters received the care they required. She was very involved in fundraising and was even there at the opening of a new facility, an experience that she describes as an honor that made her proud. The project was finally cancelled in 2019 despite the fact that a member of the royal family actively backed it. Everyone was devastated by the hospice and #039's closure, but Princess Beatrice, who had devoted her life to the cause, was most devastated. One of the most glaring instances of how money can and #039 buy happiness was this. Beatrice remained resolute even after this devastating incident. Grace Place and #039's importance became clear to her on a deeper level than before. So, she didn't and #039 let herself be discouraged by the setback. On the contrary, she let it fuel her determination to keep fighting for marginalized communities. What does she intend to do now? At the age of 36, Princess Beatrice and #039's net worth is $5 million. She is presently expecting another child with Eduardo, which is a fun fact. As an advocate and participant in a dyslexia awareness project, she has done her share to bring attention to the issue. The fact that she has always believed in others is a big part of why she is beloved by many.